New Zealand is one of the most beautiful countries in the world, and to be honest, this place will have you questioning whether or not you're still on planet Earth with how unique some of these amazing landscapes are. But it's important to mention that with these beautiful landscapes come more dangerous road conditions. There are a lot of windy roads in New Zealand and a lot of risky areas that can set you up to be in a disastrous situation in the blink of an eye. A few days into our trip around New Zealand, we were driving from Glenorchy up to Queenstown, where this road has a bunch of beautiful areas you can stop and check out the amazing landscapes and scenery that New Zealand has to offer. And as we're driving closer to Queenstown, we come across a huge traffic jam in the middle of nowhere. And this is, a one-lane road for each direction. The cars are stopping, we're looking ahead, and there's a really long line of cars. Then we keep waiting a little bit longer, and people are starting to get out of their cars because it's not moving, which is quite abnormal. And as we walk closer, we see a helicopter landing, and at first I thought it was just like maybe a landing pad where tourists were hopping on and off helicopters. But as we got closer, we realized this helicopter was landing on the road, and it was a flight for life. So on this day, there was a tour bus that was going a little bit too fast, as the reports say, and carrying just about 20-something people, it ended up flipping on its side. A really traumatic day. On the bright side, there was not any deaths, but there were a couple people who had their lives permanently changed. When the bus flipped over on its side, 2 people lost limbs. Sadly, of course, when anyone loses a limb, it's absolutely traumatic. One of them was, I believe, a 10-year-old girl. And the reason why I'm sharing this really traumatic story with you is this was an instance when whoever was at fault, which it sounds like the reports say the driver was going too fast. It was one of those moments where they were probably just driving a bit too fast, thinking they were okay, and before they knew it, they lost control of the bus and it flipped over. And it goes to show you these things happen, whether it's a tour bus, whether it's a van, a camper van, these things do happen. I think that story really helps to show the impact in this video of why you need to take some of these driving tips I'm going to share with you very seriously. Because the last thing you want is one of the most amazing trips of your life to end in some detrimental way when you only need to take a couple extra precautions just to ensure your safety. So guys, in this video, it's going to be a little bit different than my normal videos, but I felt after I saw that and seeing some of the areas that New Zealand kind of challenged me on, what am I supposed to do here? Oh, whoa, that was a little scary. Whatever it was that I ran into, I made a list of some driving tips that I think could help you. And if you're like me, I'm from the United States, along with many other countries that also drive on the right side of the road. And so, first of all, I'm already out of my comfort zone because I'm driving on the left side of the road. So you gotta pay that much more attention. But let's go ahead and jump into some of the tips that I have for you guys. So in New Zealand, it's a pretty small country population-wise. And so most of the roads, besides in some of the big cities, are 2-lane roads, one way with each direction. But in some cases, when you have to cross a bridge, they bring it down to 1 lane. And that's because there's just not enough traffic. I believe it's because it's probably not financially sustainable to make all of these bridges in really remote areas 2 lanes. And regardless of the point though, the most important thing is these things come up out of nowhere and all of a sudden it'll say give way for a bridge. And you'll come across and you have to really look because some of these bridges are right on a curve where you gotta check and double check to make sure that there's not any oncoming traffic. The second tip is speed limits change quickly. My rule of thumb was I was always driving a few kilometers under the speed limit because I was quite confused while driving in New Zealand. You would see the speed limit change within seconds. There was so many times where I would see a 100-kilometer sign and 20 feet ahead it would say 50 kilometers, which I thought was mind-blowing. What if I happen to be looking the other way and for a split second I miss the 40-kilometer-an-hour sign but I see the 100 and I can continuously going around a curve? There's just so many possibilities for accidents. I think in the US we might be a few steps ahead with the safety of our roads, and I really realized that when we were in New Zealand and saw just how quickly the speed limits change. So a lot of people drive fast in New Zealand regardless of the speed limits. And a lot of vehicles will need to go a little bit slower, like we were in our camper van. And you know, there were just some roads that, hey, it's at 100 kilometers an hour, but that's just simply too fast to drive my camper van. And so with that, you'll have a lot of cars passing you. And there are shoulders in a lot of areas where they give way for you to go ahead and pull over on the side and let the faster cars go by. Make sure to do that, because number one, you're putting yourself at risk and you're putting the other cars that might want to get around and pass you because they're going a little bit faster. So just watch for that, because there is so much passing on the other side of the road, and a lot of people are pretty dangerous with it. I saw a bunch of people passing me when there was a curve coming around. So what my rule of thumb was, as soon as there happened to be a pack of cars behind me, I'd pull over, or I'd find one of those shoulders, somewhere safe, of course, to pull over, and then I'd let all these people pass that are in a bit more of a hurry. The next one is, there is a lot of road construction in New Zealand. I don't know if it's just this time of year or if they just constantly have certain areas, but driving throughout the South Island, we ran into road construction all the time. And it's another one of those instances where you need to keep your eyes peeled, because it would really just pop up out of nowhere. All of a sudden it would say 100 kilometers, then you would drive around the bend and there'd be a 30-kilometer sign, but then right after that, the construction guys are stopping you. And so it was really, you know, very abrupt sometimes when you would go ahead and have to stop for these different construction sites. I'm not as familiar what the road construction process is in New Zealand, but I can tell you it flips up a lot more rocks than when I drive over construction areas in the US, and pretty big rocks. So it's an important point that you want to, they say go 30 kilometers an hour, but I'll tell you, even when I was going 30, it was spitting up so many rocks that I was worried that maybe the person in front of me was going to spit up one and knock out the windshield. And so the next point I want to share with you guys is, when you're driving along coastal roads or in the mountains, there are going to be certain areas where the road's barely cut out of the mountain, and they literally must have just dug one part of it out. And so for whatever reason, they have it down to one lane. So similar to the bridges, but this time it's just one lane roads, and you're going around curves. They say, I think maybe 15-20 kilometers per hour going around these, because sometimes you have tour buses coming around with basically 1.5 lanes for you to share. So these areas, you need to be so cautious. Number one, you're usually right next to the side of a mountain, so there could be falling rocks. And then number two, you have oncoming traffic that's sharing the lane with you. So these ones are probably the times that I was the most scared while driving, just because you didn't know what was coming around that bend. You didn't know if it was a tour bus, you didn't know if it was clear, you just simply didn't know. And so you had to drive really slow and really cautiously. So yeah guys, those were just a few points that I thought stuck out to me. Hopefully it helps at least one or two of you guys, or many of you guys, if there's a few things you didn't think about. Just overall, my experience driving in New Zealand was that it's safe if you focus on following the road signs and you keep your eyes peeled. But the few times where I might have been driving just a bit too long and I started to get kind of, you know, missing some road signs and, you know, not fully paying attention, that's when I would find myself slamming on the brakes coming around these curves, because I was just going too quick and kind of got in the zone. So stay alert and don't drive too long. Go ahead and pull over, enjoy these beautiful landscapes, and have a break then, and just keep your mind moving, so that way your mind doesn't get too complacent and you might miss some of these details that could be life-threatening. So I hope this video will help you guys when planning for your trip in New Zealand. It's such a beautiful country. I could go back there and spend so much more time there, and I really want you guys to have an amazing and safe time too, so you can have the best possible experience. So guys, thanks so much for watching. If you liked this video and it was helpful for you, hit that thumbs up. If you have any other driving tips you want to share, put them in the comments, and that way any other people that watch this video can know to look down there and see some other points that you might think are helpful. These were just the ones that stuck out the most to me, and I wish I had known a little bit more about the New Zealand roads and the driving conditions prior to arriving. And just on that point, I want to mention that, you know, I was there in the summer. It was sunny most of the time. If the conditions are rainy or snowy, if it gets any snow around there, it's going to be that much more dangerous, and you got to be that much more careful. And so guys, I'm going to have a lot more videos coming out all around the world like this, and in other formats as well. And so hit that subscribe button, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next video.